What is up, and welcome back to Working Hard, Hardly Working. I'll be honest, I've been peer pressured into creating this episode, but it was so fun to do. After our New Year compilation episode about improving your life went crazy, I asked what other kind of theme-led episodes that you would like, and so many of you said you wanted an edition on finances, money, moola. So the aim for this episode is everything that you need to know about money, and I took this as a wide definition. So we're going from literally why money exists and why you can't print more money for the boys out there, to saving, investing, raising funds, and even some deep stuff on attitudes to money and wealth. A lot of this kind of stuff is things that we were never taught in school, and it is crazy to me that I know more about algebra than I do about how to spend and save my own money wisely. So this is as much for school me as it is for you, and I wanted to make this as an episode that could just be a great resource that links all of these episodes together, gives a little bit more insight into money and investing and finances and attitudes on these different things so that we can all feel empowered to do what we need to do with our money. It is important to know things and to have the knowledge to be able to make empowered decisions on what you want to do with your money and your life. Before we get into the episode, it would mean such a huge amount if you could subscribe to this channel. We grew more than we ever have in the last month, and it is really the one thing you can do to support this free resource I absolutely love making for you every Monday. And it also means that in your sub box every Monday you will get a little bit of life improvement advice, whether that is on finances, on sex and relationships, on interesting conversations with interesting people, so that you can start your week off on the right foot and just improve your life, because that's what we all want to do. This episode of Working Hard, Hardly Working is sponsored by XTB. If you've listened to this podcast for a while now, you will know that I am hugely passionate about financial literacy and taking control of your personal finances. We've got some great episodes in the archives all about how to take control of your money and start investing, and I am all about making investment easier and more accessible for everyone. XTB is an all-in-one investing app that does exactly that. They have 0% commission stocks and ETFs equivalent up to 100,000 euros. Plus, they also offer flexible stocks and shares ISAs so that you can invest tax-free into thousands of shares and ETFs as part of their yearly ISA subscription. And if you're wondering what I mean by ETFs, ISAs and stocks, might I direct you to our episode with Girls That Invest founder Simran Kaur. Finally, XTB offers interest rates on your uninvested funds, all helping you to grow your wealth this year. So whether you have your financial goals for the year set and ready, or you're not even sure where to start, I'd highly recommend taking a look at XTB. They make it so simple. XTB, where your money works. Okay, so we're starting with the basics. All the way back in 2023, I had Rupal Patel, a senior economist at the Bank of England, on the podcast, and the brief was to ask all the stupid questions that you've never asked to create a guide for anyone who knows nothing about the economy. So we are starting with a couple of clips from their episode to really ease us in. This is Rupal on what money actually is.
So over the years, money has been loads of different things. It's been shells, chocolate, teeth, cigarettes, pretty much, named objects, and it might have been considered money in some points in history. Teeth. And at the moment, it might be cash, but also it's credit cards, and now it's even things like phones and your watches. And really what it is a system of trust. If everyone believes that something is worth a certain amount and you can exchange it for something that is worth a similar amount, and you can use that as money at any point in time with anyone in an economy, then it's money.
And why is it a trusted system then, if it just relies on people's trust? Because surely then if people just turn around and they were like, don't really see the value of that number in my account anymore. I mean, you can't think money to not existing.
You can in some way, but you need a lot of people to think in the same way. So at the moment, all our money is backed by the trust in the central bank. That is the Bank of England. And at the Bank of England, we make sure that, that fiver in your pocket is worth £5 year in, year out. And you can go to the shops and buy £5 of worth of things. But if you don't believe in it, and a lot of people don't, then that paper is worthless. And we've seen it in other countries before, where you see currencies collapsing and people having to use other things to pay for it. Usually they go for, say, dollars, because it's more you can use it more widely in different countries. But luckily in the UK, sterling has held up as kind of the money of choice.
And this is Rupal on the question we all want to ask but feel dumb to say out loud, which is, why don't we just print more money? We all need more money. Why not just print more money?
Well, we can, but we really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So by giving everyone a bit more money, you might think you might be able to buy more stuff. So if I just gave you, doubled the amount of money in your account, but I did it for everyone, it would actually cause inflation, which is really bad because you've got too much money chasing too fewer goods. And that increases actually the price of them. So much so that actually you're not better off, you might even be worse off. And we've seen where this has gone really wrong for some countries. So I don't know, you might have seen images of countries like Zimbabwe where people are buying like loaves of bread using wheelbarrows of money, and perhaps it still might not be enough. So if we print too much money, we get too much inflation.
So obviously we can't just print more money all the time or just blanket give everyone like an injection of money. I mean, interestingly, I know they did that in terms of like the stimulus checks in the US in COVID times. Do those types of things cause inflation?
Yes, but sometimes inflation might be needed.
Okay.
And actually, we did something similar here in the UK.
Yeah.
We've actually done quite a few times. We've printed, the Bank of England have actually printed money, and they did it actually during the COVID crisis as well in 2020, when the Bank of England thought that the economy actually needs stimulating and people did need to spend more, because even though high inflation is really bad, actually having something called deflation, where prices are falling, can be just as bad.
Okay.
Which is quite surprising. But,
Yeah.
If you think about if you're wanting to buy, I don't know, a new pair of jeans or something, and next day they're going to go on sale and so they're going to be cheaper, you're going to put off buying that pair of jeans.
Right.
But then if you know next week it's going to be even cheaper, and the week after that, you're just never going to buy that pair of jeans. And if that happens across the whole economy, no one spends any money, and actually the economy gets smaller and smaller, and that could be even worse than sometimes having too much inflation.
Okay, so now we know what money is, it's time to actually get on to what you should be doing with it. I spoke to Anna Harvigsen, founder of Female Invest, all about saving and making money. This was a short, sharp, and to the point episode, all about the basics of what you actually need to be doing with your money and investing in general. This clip is her talking about whether it's better to be saving or making money, which actually really changed my mindset and felt so opposite to what I think a lot of us are taught and told. Of course, the reality is that there are all different walks of society and all different walks of privilege, and different people will have a different perception of this. I think the best thing you can do is listen to this and work out if that identifies with you and with the current job you're in or the background you're from, the environment you're operating in, so that you can work out whether actually, do you know what? No, number one, I need to be focusing on saving, or actually, no, I need to be focusing on how I can get more money in income so that it makes saving a lot easier for me. And look, a lot of this is incredibly complex, and I think we could speak all day about the morality around a lot of this and disparities in wealth. But what I really want to do with this podcast is to give you as much knowledge as possible so that you can make the decisions that you feel are appropriate for your situation. I've had a lot online of people debating whether it is easier for most people to save more money to gain wealth or to make more money to gain wealth. I know that's an overly simplified view because obviously totally depends on the situation. If you were talking to someone and their main aim overall was to build wealth, would you recommend that they save more or that they go out to find more ways to make it?
So as you say, it's definitely a bit simplified. So the real answer would be a combination. But I also will say that if you don't know how to manage your money, then there is almost no amount or no salary that will save you if you have bad money management skills. We usually say in Female Invest that if you don't know how to manage £100, you won't know how to manage £100,000. And I actually saw a statistic recently. I forgot the exact numbers, but the key takeaway was that there is a shocking amount of people who make very high salaries who still live paycheck to paycheck, because then maybe they put themselves in too expensive housing, they have too expensive habits, they don't know how to invest, all of these things. So definitely getting financially literate and not just saving, but being intentional about your money is more important than whatever salary you make in the first place.
And so if you were starting a job, say you were starting your first salaried job, what would you be doing with that income? Obviously assuming that it's not going to be the highest salary, because obviously just starting out, what would you decide to do with that money?
So we like to use a framework called the 50-30-20 rule. And following this framework, around 50% of your income should go to fixed expenses, so rent, electricity, and so on. 30% to present you, so living life, having fun, and then 20% to future you, which is a mix of saving and investing. And of course, we know, everyone's situation is different, especially right now in this cost of living crisis. So you can also adapt this framework to your own personal situation. But I think it's a nice way of thinking about it, having these 3 categories, because if you're not mindful about it, then I think it's very, very easy to end up, spending more than you want to. And when you look back through your bank statements, a lot of it maybe wasn't intentional. So it's about spending money where it actually gives you value.
Anna's answer was so good. I feel like her episode is really a hidden gem in the archives. And next up is an episode that appeared on our latest compilation, but this is a different clip that absolutely had to be here. I direct so many people to this episode because if you want to know about investing, you have to listen to it. And I feel like so much financial advice you get online is coming from the perspective of someone who's already incredible with their money. So what I really wanted to get into with Simran is how you sort yourself out if your finances aren't exactly where you want them to be. And here is her genius take on how to tackle your debt.
So when it comes to debt, there's 2 ways that you can deal with it. There's the snowball method and the avalanche method. And all you have to do is you have to get pen and paper, write down, this is the hardest part, writing it down, but write down all the debt that you have. So do I have car debt? Do I have, pay loan debt? Do I have anything that's like on a personal credit card that's more than 7%? Write it all down. Do I have an IOU with someone? And then next to it, put down all the interest rates on that debt. So maybe some is like 4%, some is 10%, some is 25%. And write down on a 3rd column how much money is in that. So, is it a $3,000 loan? Is it a $15,000 loan? And depending on what you prefer, some people like to do the snowball method where they line it up based on the smallest debt that they have to the largest, and then they pay it off that way. And what's good about that, that's what I personally like, is you build momentum because you're like, okay, I got rid of the $2,000 debt. Now I feel encouraged and inspired to tackle the $10,000 one. And then eventually when you get to the $50,000 one, you're like, I'm making progress. It's good. And then you've got the avalanche method, which is where you write it all down based on what debt has the highest interest rate, because that's going to cause you to lose more money, and you pay that off more quickly. Nothing is more powerful than accountability. So tell someone, make it a Google Doc and share it with your best friend and say, hey, every month I want you to come and check and make sure I've crossed these off. And if I haven't, please say something. And I think this is the hardest one of all. This is probably the hardest tip that I've ever had to share, but tell someone that you're in debt. It's not easy and we feel shame, but I truly believe, and I know it's easier to say now in the financial position that I'm in, but I don't believe that my worth has anything to do with how much money I have. If I was in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, I'm still a worthy person. I'm still a good friend. I can still go and tell my friends and have fun. But tell your friends so that they can help you and hold you accountable. When I was in a position where I needed to get better with money, I would go to, like, my friends keep bringing this one story up. I don't even remember it. But they're like, you came to get ice cream with us and you just didn't buy ice cream and you just sat with us watching us eat ice cream. And they're like, we felt so bad for you, but that was my choice. I wanted to save. I had a goal to get rid of debt, or I had a goal to, save up for something else. And your friends will understand. And if they don't, that's a blessing to let go of friends that aren't here to help you in your journey.
One thing I really want to say with debt too is that I get so many messages from people who are currently struggling with debt, struggling with clearing their debt, realizing they're in debt, whatever it might be, and feeling really alone and ashamed about it. And I feel like, first of all, that's why I really wanted to do that episode with Simran and actually spend some time deep diving into the idea of debt, how you clear it, how you remove shame around it, all of that. But I also just really want to say that because I think it's really easy to think when you are in debt of all different kind of sizes that you are completely alone and that it is your fault and all of these different kind of like stigmatized views on it. I see so many messages on it and so many questions on it, and that is why I made the episode. But also just know that, like, step by step, day by day, you've got this and you are moving in the right direction as long as you're taking action. But I think the worst thing you can do is feel this kind of head in the sand shame about it. So that's why I really wanted to do this episode. But now we have covered money, saving, debt, and we are moving on to investing. We're going to stick with Sim for now, as she had some really incredible advice on why you should be investing and how to educate yourself on it.
It was those research papers. It was reading about what was going on, and it was understanding how I learned things, which, for so long was like, okay, well, what does the data say? And okay, actually, wait, people trying to pick and choose individual shares, that's what you read online or what you watch movies about as the best way to make money. But that's not true, because all the studies find that even the most qualified investors in the world, the people that, are fund managers for some of the largest funds in the world that are Ivy League educated, 92 to 98% of them don't beat the market over a 15-year period.
Wow.
92 to 98% of them don't beat the market. And so we think that maybe I should try and pick and choose what's doing well, or maybe, I'm really interested in this company and that company. But if the best of the best can't do it well, this is their job, then I'm going to realize, well, maybe I should just put my money in funds and diversify and have a little bit of a portfolio, maybe 5 to 10% of speculative investments, which is a jargon way of saying picking and choosing companies. But when you look at that, then suddenly everything else just becomes noise.
Do you think there's a part of that, though, that makes it a little bit scary to get into investing? Like, if someone told me that the people who were highly qualified were not beating the market, I'd be like, oh, well, there goes my chance.
That's a really good point, actually. When people say beating the market, what it essentially means is, well, if I can't beat the market, maybe I should invest in the market.
Right.
And so I think that's the way I took it. If you look at the results of a fund called the S&P 500, which is just the top 500 companies in the US, so it's like your Apple and your Amazon and your Google and your Microsoft, the performance of that fund over a 40-year period has its ups and downs. So, you've got the GFC, you've got the Gulf War, you've got the dot-com bubble, COVID-19 recently. But the trend of it eventually is a upwards trend with lots of little ups and downs throughout. And what the data shows and the papers show is, well, actually, if you invest in the market, just in that's a much better way of hedging your risk than trying to pick and choose.
Incidentally, investing was actually one of my biggest goals this year. And I've invested my money probably for about 8 years now. But I've not spent a lot of time really trying to educate myself on all of the different areas of investing. And if I'm honest, I just haven't really felt knowledgeable on a lot of it, despite having talked to a lot of these amazing people. So it's been one of my goals this year to really surround myself with it, read up on it more, so that I feel empowered to make the right decisions with my money, and really understand the markets and all of that. So I do think that episode's amazing. What I would also recommend that I put on my Instagram story recently is that in the same way we think about surrounding ourselves with amazing people, like we talk about how you become just like the 5 people who you are closest to, we spend so much time consuming content that I really believe that you become kind of like the content that you consume the most. And that really reflects your mindset and your knowledge. And I think that especially with the amount we consume social media, you have to actively surround yourself with the type of content and the type of knowledge that you want to learn. So I would really, really recommend following accounts related to things that you want to get into. For me, for example, I've joined Reddit. I've followed a load of threads on investing, on things like trading 212, on general different stocks and shares, emerging technologies, all of that, just so that, and set up the notifications, just so that I get that information through. And I think that that's one of the best things you can do to really get more knowledgeable about something, is just finding good accounts for things like this and really just surrounding yourself with it. We are also actually in the process at the moment, as I'm recording this, of setting up a Working Hard, Hardly Working Instagram, where we want to be able to do exactly that, share the type of information that improves your life and improves your knowledge base so that you can move in the direction you want to move in. Now, we are moving from investing yourself to getting investment for your company. Now, we're only including one clip on this because I'm conscious it's not super relevant to everyone, but I do get a lot of confusion in my DMs about the difference between investing for yourself and investment in a company. Well, we talked about that in a number of different episodes, but we did a deep dive episode with Jason Mahendran. So I just thought I'd include a little bit of background on that as well. So this is the amazing Jason Mahendran. He is a VC investor and a fountain of knowledge when it comes to raising money for companies.
There is so much confusion about investment and what does it mean and where can it come from. And I think often it just gets bucketed into,
absolutely,
I'm either going to have investment or I'm not going to have investment. And so the way that we think about it, to try to break that down to people, is at the start of your journey, if you want to raise capital, the place where people would typically go to is some form of angel type investment. So there might be, if you're fortunate enough to have a network where you can access people from friends and family perspective, then you can go ahead and do that, and that will be it's a great way to get some funding into the business and get off the ground. From there, I think then it's easy to think about it as the stage of business as it grows and split the investment landscape up in that way. So after that friends and family angel round, that's where lots of people, businesses and founders, may look to the venture capital, the VC space. And those are typically funds that are, or investors that are looking to back a number of businesses. And often that can be quite technology focused. And often it can be about seeking out the next unicorn, and you're really looking for like the next big thing. But what that means inherently is, as an investor, some of your businesses may not get there and are less likely to succeed. And then after that stage, we think about the growth capital market more than private equity. And that's where we at Active sit. And the way that we think about that, or the way that we would define that, is it's businesses that have already proven that there is demand for what they want to do. And now they're looking for capital as well as a like-minded partner to scale on that journey, before then probably getting into the more traditional private equity space. And in that traditional private equity space, businesses are even larger still. And often there can be a mix of capital that goes into the business as well as capital that goes out to existing shareholders. One of the key defining factors of private equity is the use of debt in that market. And that's really not something that we're doing in the growth capital space, and certainly not much of it in the venture capital space. They're typically larger businesses, even further still at private equity, with debt that can be used in those situations. And then outside of that, there are lots of other options as well, whether those are family offices, whether those are actually just borrowing debt as a business and deciding not to go for an equity type of round. So that's how we think about the spectrum of investment, and there's lots of complexity and nuance within that.
If this is something you're interested in, I have videos on my YouTube going through the pitch decks I use for every funding round that we've done at Tala, because people don't actually talk about how to get funding. Now it's time for congratulations, because you've reached the fun pep talk part of the episode. You've done your intense economics lesson, and now it's time for a bit of motivation that will send you out into the world a newly financially educated and motivated person. And if you're wondering what this all is for, or why it even matters as a woman, it is time for some Vivian 2. This was a pep talk in like money motivation, getting your finances where you want them to be, and also not making some mistakes that are pretty not encouraged on social media maybe, but like the landscape seems to be suggesting that certain things are a good idea at the moment on social media, like they're very much trending, and here's an antidote to that. But I'd love to talk about what you think the effect of the current Tradwife movement has on women and their finances.
Oof, how much time do we have? Okay, so to your point, I think the Tradwife movement is incredibly harmful. I am 0 out of 10 supportive. To your point, very different than a homemaker or stay-at-home mom. This is the feminism we fought for, gals. Like, we want to have the right to choose. It wasn't that we all wanted to be in the workplace. It was that we wanted to have the right to choose. And it's the right to choose, do I want to stay home and focus on taking care of the home, taking care of the kids, or do I want to have a corporate career? That's feminism. The Tradwife movement comes in with a lot of very patriarchal expectations of serving my husband, which I don't like. Because you shouldn't be serving your husband. You should be partners with your husband. And to see women say, and some of these Tradwife are even still working women, and they're like, my paycheck gets deposited into his bank account. I'm like, are you insane? Why? Why would you do that? And then he gives me an allowance.
Energy.
Yeah, he like gives me an allowance after my paycheck is deposited into his bank account. No, that is 0 out of 10. Your rich BFF not approved. Like, giving somebody full financial agency over your life is the most dangerous thing you can ever do. I say that for someone, I say this to people who are stay-at-home parents, homemakers, people who work corporate jobs and have double incomes. Do not let anybody ever have full control over your money, because then they will have full control over you. Anybody who has the power to feed you has the power to starve you. And you need to have your own money. With my partner, we use a yours, mine, and ours system. So for ours, our mortgage gets paid out of this pot, our utilities, date night, whatever. But we each have our own money, which is wonderful, because when he decides to go golfing for the third time this week, and I find out that golfing is actually very expensive to do, it's his money. He's allowed to go golfing. Enjoy it. He recently found out that lash extensions are $150 a pop. And he was like, and you gave me a hard time about golfing. It's like, yes, but it's my money. It's my yours, mine, and ours pot. We have different money in different places. We know that we have this money. It's not like it's a secret that I have this secret bank account. It's like we've had an open dialogue about us having money in different places, and we should all have the control to be able to do that. It's not that our grandparents or parents had better marriages or relationships. Our grandmothers, our mothers, weren't even legally allowed to have bank accounts in their own names until 1974. Grandma couldn't leave. She didn't have any money. And so I get too many DMs from women that are like, I just found out my husband is cheating. I don't even know the password to our bank account. I don't know what we have. I don't know. He's like going to lie to me about this. I don't know what to do. And that happens more often than I'd like to admit. And so I always say, have your own money, regardless of the situation. Do not ever let someone control you. You do not exist to be supporting cast in somebody else's life. You are the main character. And get a prenup. I highly encourage everyone to get a prenup. And everybody's like, ew, prenups, like your wedding's not going to work, or like your marriage is not going to work. Whether or not you write the prenup with a lawyer, you get one. The government just gets to write it. I don't trust the government as far as I can throw them. I don't want them doing anything for me. I will sit down on a sunny day with my husband, with my future husband. We will each have our own attorneys, and we will agree to what we want in our prenup. And people are like, well, she's just saying that as a hypothetical. No, my fiance and I are getting a prenup. When we started dating, he made a lot more money than me, and he paid for everything. Dinner, vacation, everything. Over the past few years, I've had the immense privilege and luck and, good fortune to have built my business in a way that I am now making much, much more money than he is. But we have been partners on this entire journey. And so we have agreed to this prenup. Going into the relationship, every dollar we each have right now will be split 50-50. During the marriage, everything we each earn, any asset that we have, is 50-50. Only carve out being my business. He has a 0% equity stake in my business, and I own 100% of it. And that's the only thing that I carved out. And I sat down and I was, admittedly, I was a little nervous. And I'm like, I think we should get a prenup. And this is what I want. And he's like, okay, well, like, what's the big thing? And I was like, well, I built this business from the ground up. No management, no agent, nobody in Hollywood will take me on if, for God forbid, something happens and my ex-husband owns 50% of the company. And he, as a rational person who loves me, and again, I said this on a sunny day, we were both in good moods. He said, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. And we're going 50-50 on everything else? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, cool, done.
As you say, the risk is not getting a prenup. The risk is the fact that you're getting one anyway because marriage is a contract and
Correct.
has legal standing.
Correct.
And therefore you're just not choosing it.
Correct.
And actually, it would be such a red flag if he turned around and been like, oh no, I should have 50% of your business. Like, no fucking way.
Like,
and
I don't get to put your job on my resume.
Right.
I don't get 50% of that finance job you have. No.
And finally, here is Robin Sharma on why actually being rich isn't just about money, although obviously money gives you a huge amount of security and freedom, and there is a huge layer of privilege that goes into that. But what it truly means to be wealthy, according to him, isn't just dollar bills. And I wanted to put this in here as a reminder that money is not an end goal. Of course, it is a huge facilitator in freedom and being able to do what you want to do, and it cannot be understated, I guess, in terms of what it can bring you. But I also think I've spoken to a lot of people on the podcast who have got to the point where their pursuit of money alone has essentially been at odds with their pursuit generally of happiness, and they've only realised that in hindsight. So I feel like this is always a good thing to remember.
Our society has programmed us, chase a mountaintop to make lots of money, and then you're rich. Well, I've mentored for over 15 years celebrated billionaires, sports superstars, entertainment royalty movement makers. I can tell you a lot of those people, from personal experience, are cash rich and their life poor. A lot of people have a lot of money and that's all they have. So the 8 forms of wealth, the first one, personal development, that's a currency. If you are each day a little bit developing and building intimacy with your gifts and your talents, that's a form of wealth. The second form of wealth, your wellness. I know you believe so much in wellness. If you don't have your health, you have no wealth whatsoever. I was once at an event, someone handed me a piece of paper. It said, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the ill person can see. Third form of wealth, family. Family is really, often I don't know what you think, but often we take the people we love the most for granted until we lose them. So the 8 forms of wealth is a decision matrix or a framework for your richest life. And it involves things like productivity. I agree with you. I think I'm happiest when I feel I'm moving things forward. We could talk about the dopamine release. We could talk about norepinephrine and all this. I think we're meant to progress. But it's when we spend too much time on one thing and forget these 8 forms of wealth that I think we run into trouble.
So tell me what the 8 forms of wealth are.
The first one is growth. I don't think a lot of people say, oh, congratulations, Grace. You're meditating and you're working on yourself. You're journaling and you're healing. You're a very rich woman. But it is. I mean, to get to know your primal genius makes you a rich person. Second one is wellness. To be taking care of your good health. There's lots of chapters in the book on how to do that, like breathe like a samurai, practice the naked sunbathing rule, take a bath in the forest, which is really about forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku, as the Japanese call it. But without good health, nothing matters. You want to increase your income and your impact, get super fit. Third form of wealth, your family life, your friendship life. I mean, to neglect that, there's no point in living in a beautiful mansion, but living there all alone. Fourth form of wealth is your craft. I almost think that hard work right now has a bad reputation. And I think seeing your work, no matter if you're a barista, you're a grave digger, you're an astronaut, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, all work has dignity. Have you ever been in a coffee shop or walked into a clothing store? 7 people are checked out, they're on their phones, but there's that one person who still has so much pride. They look you in the eye, they're present, they care, they want to deliver value. So seeing your work as a chance to pursue mastery is a currency money can't buy. The 5th form of wealth, I want to acknowledge, the 5th form of wealth is money. Money is a form of wealth. Puts food on the family table, gives you freedom, allows you not to be backed into a corner to make decisions you don't want to do. 6th form of wealth is your social circle. You want to be around people whose lives you want to be living. 7th is adventure. 8th, one of the most important, is service. And one element of service is just being a gift giver versus a taker. Help seeing anyone in need or never missing an opportunity to make someone's life better.
And that is it. That is our deep dive on finances and investing and all things money. Let me know any other topics that you'd like us to do a compilation episode on. I was thinking a health-specific one could be good, or maybe one with like the best business tips or corporate career tips. Like there's lots we can do because we've done so many episodes, and I personally love pulling out these compilation episodes. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Thank you so much again for watching and listening. And if you enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or leave us a lovely review. It means the absolute world.